Hi, welcome to Cocos Creator Introduction Class 3. This week we will add some functions to our code and we will start talking about TypeScript. So last week we created some orcs and some treasures, and we have a function that is create room. Now that we have a room, I also want to be able to explore the room. So down here below create room, I will create a new function. I use tab as much as I can to make sure that I don't get any spelling errors. Explore room. And the room I want to explore, I need to know just the ID of the room so that I know which room to explore. Now that we got the ID of the room, we need to be able to find the correct room in our array of rooms up here. The way we do that, we could manually go through the array of rooms and find it, but an array has a function for finding something. So the room I want to find, I will call room. And I'm going to look in my array, rooms, and then I will use the find function. And what do I want to find? I want to obviously find the room that has ID 1. But the syntax for find looks like this. Okay, so what's going on here? We will look in rooms for every item in that array. Do this. So let's rename this from room to something else, because now we have room. Next room. Like that. It says, I'm looking at the first room in my array, and I will call that next room. With that item, check if next room.id equals the ID I got in my function. Then take that room and assign it to this constant here. If not, then look at the next room, and the next room, and the next room, and the next room. I can click on a name, and everywhere that has the same name will light up in a square in my case, because I'm using this theme. Next room is this one and this one. Room is not used anywhere yet. So now I have a room that I can actually use for something. I'm going to say return room. I want this function to return the room, just like we did with create room up here. Okay, so what do I want to do with the room? I want to say if room dot status is unexplored, we set the status of the room to unexplored right here. If that is the case, then change the status of the room to explored. After that, take my gold and assign my current gold plus the gold from the treasure that is in the room. So I get more and more gold. And then down at the bottom here, I want to explore room number 1. I save and I go to my terminal and I write node. I want to run org attack and it fails. We have a lot of problems here, but we do not have any warnings in our code. It is not easy for us to figure out what is going on here. And that is what TypeScript can help us with. We'll look at that next. The first step of changing from JavaScript to TypeScript is simple. We just go to our file, right-click on it, and choose rename. And I'm going to change it from JS, which means JavaScript, to TS, which means TypeScript. And as you can see, I get a lot of errors now. These are not new errors in our code. These were errors we already had. We just didn't know we had them. And this is the benefit of TypeScript, is that it will show us, oh, here's an error, here's an error, here's an error, here's an error, here's an error. The problem with TypeScript is that our browser cannot run TypeScript. So we need to install some software that will take the TypeScript and change it into JavaScript in a new file that we then can run. The way we do that is we go down to our terminal and make sure I'm in the correct folder, and I write npm install TypeScript, and it will take a second, and then it's installed. I got some new files. I got a completely new folder over here with a lot of things inside. Some of you will have an issue right here where you're there'll be a warning that says your computer does not allow to run scripts. So let's fix that. What I have done here is I've right-clicked on the Windows icon in the taskbar and chosen System. And then after you do that, you need to click on this system over here on the left. Then I will find the item called For Developers and open that. And then I have here PowerShell is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 or 8. PowerShell, and you need to turn this one on. This is the one that says, oh, you're not allowed to run scripts on this computer. We need to be able to run scripts on this computer. So switch that on. And I also want to change some things in the File Explorer. It's here number 5. File extensions is like images have, it's a JPEG or it's a PNG. A text document is .txt. You can see our TypeScript code is .ts. Our JavaScript was .js. When I open a window, a File Explorer window, Windows will hide that extension from us. We need to be able to see what is it. So I turn this one on. I recommend turning this one on as well, show hidden and system files. There are some files in Windows that normal users are not supposed to change because it can really mess up Windows. It's a good idea if we can at least see them. I like to have show full path in title bar. We'll see if I can open a window here. So my title bar up here shows exactly where I am, not just what the current folder is called. And the last one, yeah, I turn it on from old habit. So update your Windows with these settings. If you go to source tree, you will notice that all the files that are in this new folder and TypeScript, there's a lot of files in here. Source tree wants to put them in our repository. They want to put them in Git. That is not necessary because every time we run this code, if we download it somewhere new and run it, Node will automatically download and install this package. So I want to exclude those files from source tree. And the way we do that is we add this gitignore file here. It is in our chat. Now when you download this file, it might delete this dot here at the beginning. It's important that this file starts with dot. So after you download it, make sure that it says dot gitignore and put it in the folder. And now if you look at source tree again, it might take a minute to refresh. You'll notice that a lot of the files, specifically the files that were in this folder, they're no longer need to be committed. The next thing we need to do is we need to tell Visual Studio Code, or actually we need to tell Node what settings we want when it translates from TypeScript to JavaScript. And for that, we have another file that I put in our chat. It's called tsconfig.json. Let's have a look at that. So these are options for the compiler. And if you notice, this is actually squirrely bracket. That means it's a JSON object that has another object inside, and then that has some properties. Right now you don't need to know what all of these means. The only one we are interested in right now is this outdir. That means when it has compiled our file, it will put the output files in a folder called out. You can change this if you want. So add that file to your folder. So now I'm ready to run the code. The way I do that is I press Ctrl-Shift-B on my keyboard and I get a menu up here at the top. I can choose build or watch. Right now I'm going to choose build. And it starts building down here. And now, as you see here, it has created an output folder and there is an org-attack.js inside. Just ignore this map for now. I can open this by double-clicking it. And this is the output file from my TypeScript. Let's drag this to the right side of the screen so I can have them side by side. And you can see they look pretty much the same for now. We didn't add any TypeScript code yet. It's just nice to see that it works. Now when I want to run the code, I have two terminals open. I have one that is for the compiler, and I have one that is my PowerShell. So down here in the right corner, I can change to this one where I can write something. So I'm going to write node. Then I want to be inside the out folder. And then I want to run our org attack. And I have the same bug as before because we didn't change any code yet. So let's have a look at that. We have some problems with our types. Let's talk a little bit about types. So I will go to the top up here and I will type new file and I will call it types.js. Okay, so let me create a constant and I'm just going to call it my constant. And I'm going to put hello world into the constant, just like we did earlier. If I mouse over my constant, it says it's a constant called my constant and it has the value hello world. Now if I try to assign some new value to my constant, so let's assign a number 56. It looks like it works. But if I save and I go down to my PowerShell and I say I want to run this file, it's called, where is it? Types.js. I get an error. The error says I'm trying to assign something to a constant. I cannot do that. It's a constant. That means I cannot change it. But we get no warning here in our JavaScript. Let's comment that out, go to the next thing I want to show you. Let's create a variable. Let my variable equals high. That works. Now if I mouse over my variable, it's a string. I can console.log my variable, save, go down, run our code. It outputs high. After I assign my variable, I can say my variable equals 45. That's a number. Save, go down, run the code. It outputs 45. It's completely fine. And let's say my variable equals true. It's a Boolean. Save, go down and run the code. That looks fine. So this looks like it works. The issue is, if I have my variable, I want it to be a string, and I have somewhere in my code that expects this is a string. There's nothing in JavaScript that stops me from putting a number or a Boolean or actually any object into this variable. And then the code that expects a string will fail. And it's really difficult to find the issue. So now I'm going to go rename this types.js. I'm going to rename it to types.ts. And now I get some errors. Let's uncomment this constant up here. Even before I run the code, I get an error that says you cannot assign something to a constant. We had this error before, we just didn't know it. Now TypeScript tells us, oh, you cannot do this. So let me comment that out again. My variable here is a string. Now I'm trying to put a number in it, and it says you cannot put a number into a type that is a string. And down here it says you cannot put a Boolean into a type that is a string. So TypeScript, the type in TypeScript means that it's type safe. As soon as I've told this is a string, I'm not allowed to change it to something else. And that removes this bug that we just talked about. If I rename my variable here to my variable 2 and my variable 3, and I put let over here, now it works because I'm creating new variables instead of assigning to the old variable. TypeScript knows that if I assign a string here, it is a string. We don't actually need to tell TypeScript this is the case, but we can if we want to be explicit. That means we really want to show in our code that this is what it is. Then after let my variable, I will write a colon in a space, and now here is the place where I say what type is this specifically, and I write string here. So I would like you to do the same with my variable 2 and my variable 3. Put a colon and say specifically what type it is. I'll give you a second. So obviously I just need to go here and say this is a number and this is a Boolean. Now I can Control-Shift-B. I can build it, and I will go to my PowerShell, and I will go to my out folder, and it's called types.js, and it runs. Let's go back to our org attack and see if we can fix some of the bugs we had. I want to start here. This one. What does it say? If I mouse over a red squiggly line, it will say cannot assign to gold because it's a constant. We just talked about this. So let's see if we can go up and find our gold here. Yes, it is a constant, and I'm trying to change the gold. Constant is not allowed to be changed, so I'm going to write let here instead. and save. Let's go down and look. Yes, that bug is gone. Perfect. The next thing I'm looking at is this one right here. It says my ID has an any type. TypeScript really wants us to put some types when we create functions. So here I'm going to say ID is a number. And this issue has gone away. I would like you to find and fix another place where we have this issue. I'll give you a second. Okay, so in our explore room, we had the same thing where we have an ID, and this one needs to be a number as well. Like that. I don't know if you noticed, but we got a new red line down here. Let me try to remove this again. Explore room, I will remove this. There is no red line here because explore room puts a string in, and this function just says, yeah, whatever, ID can be anything. Now I say ID has to be a number. And now my explore room down here says, you're trying to put in a string, but it has to be a number. That is not correct. So now I can actually see one of the errors we had before. So let's save. Let's try to run the code. So Control-Shift-B, build. And I go to my PowerShell. I press arrow up a few times because I know I had it up here. And the code runs. It's not easy to see if it actually worked. So let me comment out a few things. So I don't want to look at my treasures. I don't want to look at my rooms. I have an org, and then it says, how many gold pieces do I have? And then I explore a room, and then I think I want to copy this and move it down here and say, how many gold pieces do I have after I explore the room? If I just try to run the code again now, it looks just like before because my out JavaScript here did not change. Here, explore room, there's no console log, my gold. I need to press Control-Shift-B and build again. And then you saw on the right, my JavaScript changed. So now I can try to run the code again. And it says, I have this org from before. I have 30 pieces of gold, hooray. And then after I explore the room, I have 38 pieces of gold, hooray. It's exactly what I expected. The last thing we talked about was uploading our code to GitHub. So I would like you, if you haven't done it already, go to github.com and register an account. Just sign up with your email address, and I will help you set it up in SourceTree when I see you again. Thank you.